So this is the agenda for this evening. Kick off just by going through these last few bits on this slideshow here. Then I'll dive into WebAssembly. We'll be discussing a little bit about WebAssembly's history and its reason for being. Then I'll talk about Blazor WebAssembly, which is what this presentation is going to be all about. Move on from that, we'll then set up the solution and projects in VS Code, creating components from a website template, which I've purchased. We'll take a short break at about 8 o'clock as a comfort break for everybody. We'll resume again at 10 past 8. We'll go on for another 40 minutes, and we'll look to I'll host and answer hopefully any questions and answers you might have, with a goal of rounding up and finishing off at 9 o'clock this evening. So the meeting rules for these .NET meetups are just want to respect each other and their ideas. If you could all please go on mute during the presentations. If you disagree with what has been said, please challenge politely at the end of the presentation, perhaps during the questions and answers towards the end. These meetings are not for recruitment purposes. There's zero tolerance towards discrimination of any kind, and I don't know how I could or how the last item here can be policed, but there's zero tolerance towards violent, dangerous, or criminal behaviour, at least virtually anyway. And then a date for your diary. The next .NET meetup is on the 22nd of June. The topic is going to be clean architecture in mobile apps, and Phil Johnson is going to be presenting. So yeah, this evening is going to be discussing and demonstrating creating a Blazor WebAssembly powered e-commerce website. And as I said, part 1. So what is WebAssembly? Well, back in 2013, Mscripton, a C and C++ compiler, was written which targets JavaScript as a compilation target. Mozilla engineers optimized the generated JavaScript by creating a subset of JavaScript and named it asm.js or ASM. Once the other browser vendors saw how fast ASM was, they started adding optimizations to their own engines. However, they were all reaching the limits of JavaScript's capabilities. Google's native client, although very secure, didn't gain cross-browser support. So a new language was needed, one that was designed specifically to be a compilation target for any high-level language and that was supported across all major browsers. The WebAssembly project was announced in 2015. In March 2017, the design of the minimum viable product was declared to be finished by Mozilla and the preview phase ended. In August 27, the W3C formed the WebAssembly working group, and later that year, the major browsers each released versions fully supporting what would go on to be published as the WebAssembly Core 1.0 specification by the W3C in September 2018. When you make a request to a web page that uses WebAssembly, you are essentially running compiled code in the browser, which otherwise would present a security risk and wouldn't be allowed by the browser. To overcome this, WebAssembly has restricted access to memory. It's sandboxed, so it cannot access memory it isn't meant to. It is in bytecode instruction format for a stack-based virtual machine. To be able to get a specification published and adopted in the major browsers so quickly, version 1.0 has a limited set of capabilities. Having only 4 base types, which is 32 and 64-bit integers, and 32-bit and 64-bit floating points, it supports modules, functions, tables, linear memory, and global variables. The next versions of the specification will support 128-bit packed single instruction multiple data, so that's SIMD. Exception handling, at the moment exceptions are currently trapped and execution is aborted. Threading and reference types. This is the WebAssembly architecture. So in the browser, JavaScript goes through a compiler which generates bytecode, which is run within the just-in-time interpreter. Browser vendors have done a lot of work optimizing the runtime, such as ahead-of-time compilation and assumptions about standard conventions. For example, the Safari browser has 4 tiers of optimizations. This is all done to make JavaScript run as fast as possible, given that, until the launch of WebAssembly, has been the only compilation target that browsers natively understand. You can see by the diagram that WebAssembly runs directly within the just-in-time interpreter because it is already bytecode. Currently, the only way to interact with WebAssembly in the browser is to instantiate it via JavaScript. It does not have direct access to the browser or the DOM except through JavaScript. So that brings us on to Blazor WebAssembly. So inspired by React, Vue, Angular, and other JavaScript-based single-page application frameworks, Blazor allows developers to create SPAs using C# and .NET, utilizing a Razor component-based architecture. Blazor WebAssembly is a client-side, in-browser implementation of Blazor, which includes a .NET runtime implemented in WebAssembly. When a Blazor WebAssembly app is built and run in a browser, C# code files and Razor files are compiled into .NET assemblies. The assemblies and the .NET runtime are downloaded to the browser. Blazor WebAssembly bootstraps the .NET runtime and configures the runtime to load the assemblies for the app. Blazor uses an abstraction layer between the DOM and the application code called a render tree. It is a lightweight copy of the DOM state composed by a standard C# classes. The render tree can be updated more efficiently than the DOM and reconciles multiple changes into a single DOM update. To maximize effectiveness in the render tree, uses a diffing algorithm to ensure it only updates the necessary elements in the browser's DOM. Blazor WebAssembly, Microsoft have created a layer of JavaScript called interoperability, or JS interop for short, for Blazor and native JavaScript to communicate with the WebAssembly. Essentially, it's a cut-down version of .NET Standard in JavaScript and a wrapper for making calls to the JavaScript built-in WebAssembly object. So what I'm going to try and present during this presentation, I'm hoping to cover a setup of Blazor WebAssembly solution, initially creating a set of basic static Blazor components, essentially the index, category, and product pages from an e-commerce website template, which I've already pre-purchased, creating a database to support basic e-commerce website functionality, creating an API for the Blazor components to communicate with, to retrieve and store data, making the Blazor components dynamic and extracting smaller components out. Also, hopefully have some key Blazor technology demonstrations as part of this. So data binding, so component data binding, component state changes, Blazor CSS isolation, and hoping I'll get around to showing you some JS interop as well. This is built using a combination of VS Code and command line. And although not covered in this presentation, you can debug Blazor code in the browser. I created a GitHub repo for the final version if you'd like to clone and or if we run out of time. So that's the address right there. I'll also put the GitHub repo in the chat, in the Zoom chat window as well. So you can copy that and have a look at it. Importantly, there are quite a lot of VS Code extensions and plugins that I needed to use to get all this to work smoothly, which you'll also need to install as well. So I had the .NET install tool for extension authors, C# extensions, HTML, CSS support, Microsoft.ASP.NET Core, Razor.VS Code, Blazor WASM debugging extension, NuGet package manager, Visual Studio IntelliCode, Visual Studio Keymap, and WebAssembly. Also, I've installed the latest version of the .NET 5 SDK on my computer. Now, when you run up when you use .NET Run command for the first time, you might be prompted to install development certificates, which I've already done, and you won't see that happen when we go through the code here. We'll start quite simply by opening VS Code. So it's maximize the screen as well. Okay, so first thing I do is hopefully you can see the whole screen okay, but I am going to be going to the command line. Generally speaking, do a lot of the work in the command line here. And first things first, I'm just going to create a Blazor Commerce folder. This application will be called Blazor Commerce. So I'll do this in my projects folder. The source code that's in the repo, there are various references to my C drive in places, and it's all C projects and then Blazor Commerce. So I'll make a folder, make directory, Blazor Commerce. Great, and now let's cd into that. Okay. Now, I've created a website logo already using a website called freelogodesign.org. I'll paste that into the chat window as well. It's just a combination of the Blazor logo itself and just the words Blazor Commerce. When you create your logo and save it to your computer, make sure it's named logo.png, because that will sit nicely with the HTML templates. That's the Blazor Commerce logo in a shopping bag with the words Blazor Commerce. Not too exciting. Okay. Next, we want to do is to basically create a Blazor WebAssembly project. So from the command line here, simply type in .NET new Blazor WASM -F. This states what the framework version is going to use, so .NET 5, and then the folder and the folder name and the project name as well. Okay. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll open that folder we've just created, and we'll do all the navigation, the rest of the navigation through VS Code. Okay. Here's the contents of the sort of off-the-shelf, the templated Blazor WebAssembly project. We can see what this Blazor template looks like by typing .NET Run in the terminal window. Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. That would help, wouldn't it? Let's change folders. Let's try that again. A little prompt that came up on my screen earlier was asking me if I wanted to essentially add a .vs code folder, which adds required missing assets to build and debug what we're doing here. So you can see we've got it running, and it's running under a secure port on my local host of port 5001. So let's have a quick look at what this is going to look like. Well, what it currently looks like out of the box. Okay, so some of you might be have recognised this is the sort of standard off-the-shelf Blazor website. It's based on the Microsoft template. So I'll close it out for a moment. Now, to stop the website from running whilst you're in the terminal window, if you press Control-C, and that'll break you out. Now, the final version overall will look like the following e-commerce template. I looked high and low for one that was suitable for this presentation, and I eventually came across this one from wthemesgrid.com. Again, another very useful website for free templates, well, free-ish. And unfortunately, the pages we really needed, which was a product page and other pages, were actually all part of the $15 package you get, but we can have a quick preview of it now. I've already paid the $15 and already downloaded it. So this is what the site could look like when it's all said and done. Now, none of these links actually work. The only place I've found they work is if you come off of the shop menu here. We're going to obviously we're going to be implementing this home page here. This is index page, a landing page. This shop grid essentially doubles up as a sort of category landing page, which gives you essentially sibling categories here. The products, there's also a sort by and a paging function. You can sort by price. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get all of these things implemented today, but we'll get the main functional areas implemented, not a problem. And then a single product page itself would look like this. Okay, and hopefully we'll get all these sort of bits working. So the product options, adding to a cart, the little shopping cart symbol up there, with some descriptions and product features, and also get this slider working as well. Okay, now this template uses a lot of JavaScript. So the ultimate aim would be to replace as much JavaScript as we can with either using JS interop, or alternatively built in out of the box functionality that Blazor applications come with. So I'm going to close that out there. Okay, so let's start this off then. So first things first, let's create an images folder under www root. New folder, images, and let's go ahead and put our Blazor logo in there. So I'm just going to copy it from another location for the moment. I'll bring this up onto the screen so you can see what it is I'm doing. There's our folder here into images, and there's obviously nothing there at the moment, so I'm just going to copy logo from a different folder and put it in here. Okay, so that's in there, and that should now be, there we go, there's the logo. And now what we need to do is essentially start butchering this templated website. So we start that by removing the contents of the CSS folder in its entirety. It can all go, all of it. So let's delete that. We don't need them. We've got our own implementation that's coming out of our template, e-commerce template. So it's gone and it's empty. And then from the actual templates itself, I'm going to copy into the CSS folder here all the contents from the template. So I'm just going to copy and paste them in. Okay. Next, we need to delete the sample data folder. We don't need that. We're not doing a weather forecast. So we can go. Then we're going to add a JS folder to the wroot, and in a similar vein, copy all the JavaScript files from the template into this. There's all the JavaScript files. Now, although the main template itself has direct references to what's in the JS folder here, generally speaking, we'll be replacing those references with CDN versions of the JavaScript files. Okay. Now, what we need to do is go into the indexed HTML here, which is very bland at the moment. And we're going to replace a lot of this. So I'm going to replace the head section in the www root index file with the head section from the template. So let's do that. I'm grabbing this from the index HTML page out of the template, which I will drag onto the screen so you can see. So here it is. I need to copy from the entire contents from there down to there, but we're not going to copy across this color section here. It's just not required. There it goes. Oops, and get rid of all that. I don't need that. I'll be switching colors. I'll just save it. And then we just need to leave the app loading section. We need to leave this Blazor error UI, and we need to leave the script reference to Blazor WebAssembly in there. We need to add a class to the body called JS. It's done. I did about 2 hours of pain was spent until I realized to get a website, a Blazor website working on my machine locally, I just needed to add in a base reference. What I'll do is I'm going to remove or just overwrite that duplicated X-ray compatible meta tag there. Now, underneath the Blazor WebAssembly JavaScript section, I'm going to add all the JavaScript references that are in the template here. There's quite a few of them, mainly all jQuery ones. Let's put that into here. Okay, I'll save that. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to replace this loading here, something a little bit more user-friendly. And I don't know if you remember when I showed you the template website, that it had a sort of a pulsating sort of orange blob. So we're going to get that as well for here. That's going to be our loading template. So let's just grab that bit we need. So we're going to grab this preloader section in its entirety and replace the word loading those full stops there. Save that as well. Okay. Now I need to remove the contents of shared main layout.razor. Just leaving the inherit statement and the body. Save that. And then we need to copy the rest of the content out of the index.html page into the shared main layout. So again, we're going to ignore the color markup there. We're not going to use that. All the way down. Down to the end of the footer area. Now all the pages we create will be based off of this main layout, which in turn inherits from the index.html page. Blog, shop newsletter. I'll start footer area, so I need to go all the way down to the end footer area. Okay. For now, I'm just going to put it below the body. Then we can do some more deleting here. So in the shared folder, delete the main layout Razor CSS. I'm going to delete the nav menu.razor and the survey prompt, or and the CSS file. The nav menu and the survey prompt. Then in pages.index.razor, I need to delete everything except the page directive with the root in it. Then in shared main layout.razor, I need to cut the content of the slider area down to the end shop blog wherever that is. I guess it's just above the footer, I think. I feel like I've gone past it. I have, yeah. So where is it? Ah, we got end shop blog. And paste it into the pages index.razor right there. Save that. And then I need to move. So let's remember line 255. I need to move the body down to line 255 or thereabouts. Okay, let's just nudge that in as well. In the pages folder, I can also delete the counter.razor and the fetch data.razor. Now, there's also a second style sheet which I need to copy in from the template as well. I need to copy this into the CSS folder. I'll update the reference to it a little bit later. So this again, this is in the main template. I'm just going to copy this style.css into there. Okay. And then in index.html, there's a reference to the style CSS. We need to correct the folder path to it. So let's put that in there. And then I think as a first cut at this stage, we're done. So what I'm going to do now is go into, I'm going to run this up. So let's go to .NET run. Hopefully there'll be no compiler warnings or errors. Looking good. No moment of truth. Let's go our initial stab at this. Okay. Hey, there we go. There's that loader. And there we go. That's a pretty good representation, including our Blazor Commerce logo. As a first stab, I think that's done quite well there. Again, none of it's functional. There's all sorts of things missing, like these. There's fonts missing here and all sorts of different things. None of these links work. But other than that, it's we've got the home page up and running at least. So I'm going to close that out and Control C. So structurally, the website is coming along and requires a few tweaks to the styling, namely replacing the orange color with the purple color of the logo. So let's do that right now. So we need to replace the dominant orange color with the purple color of the logo. So if we go into the wroot folder, into CSS and into the style.css, I need to replace all instances of a couple of colors. First color I need to replace is this one, which is one of the, you can see there, it's one of the orange colors with this. I'm going to do a complete replace on that. Okay, and then secondly, there's a second shade of orange, which I noticed a couple of days ago that I need to replace as well. So that's this hex value here. There we go. Save that. Also, we need to create a fonts folder. As I said, there were some fonts missing. So let's do that now. So to here and new folder. Let's call this fonts. And then I need to copy the contents of the fonts folder from the template into this folder. So let's find the fonts, which I think are there. And into our fonts folder here. Just copy the lot. There we go. Close all these out, I think, for a moment. Close. Let's close all. There we are. Close all. Next, we're going to start by our first proper page after the index page. So now we're going to create the category page. So new file, category.razor. Now at the top of the page's category razor file, we're going to put the code from a snippet. So in the GitHub repository, I've put a bunch of little snippets, code snippets for you to use rather than to type the whole thing out. So this is the contents of the GitHub folder. So there's a code snippets folder here, and I've done about half of them so far. And there's also some other bits and pieces in there as well, which we're going to need later on. So I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to copy out the contents of this file and just paste it straight in there. So what it's doing, quite simply, we're defining a route to this page. So category, and it's going to take I'll call it a friendly category URL. To be able to use this properly, it needs to be passed in as a parameter, and then you can have a getter and setter on it. So that's what this code is doing here. Okay. Next step. So from the shop grid HTML page, that's the category page in the template. We can go back to here. So the shop grid HTML, we're going to grab a copy of the content between the lines, breadcrumbs, and end product style. So let's go to Notepad. So the breadcrumb is just down here somewhere. Let's get the scroll bar in here. So I grab it from there down to end product style 1. End product style 1. There we go. So copy that out of here and place it in between the page directive and the code directive. Okay. At this point, we can have a quick look at this. So let's the .NET Run again. So in the background, that's also compiling the code. I'm going to go to yes, localhost, and the category page can be got from here. Test will do. There we go. There's our category page. Okay, but there are a couple of problems with it. Mainly that this category menu is obscuring what is essentially behind this part, which is the breadcrumb and the sibling categories in that menu there. But again, there's our category page. Okay, so it's coming along. It's coming along. So to manage the different header navigation layouts, and after extensive research and lots of trial and error, we need to use component state, by means of the notify state changed event. It's a bit like a pub sub if you've heard of that. So in the Blazor root folder, we're going to create a new file called appstate.cs. Let's do that now. And in the snippets, I'm just going to grab the snippet for number 2. I'm just quick talk about this, what's in here. So we are defining a method, an event here called onChange, which gets evoked when the notify state change method is called from other calling classes. And what this essentially does is it just toggles on and off whether or not to display the category menu in the header nav. That's all it's really going to be used for in this instance. This is quite a standard way of handling state in Blazor applications. The next thing we need to do is we need to inject this into the program CS file. So to do that, above this wait build.build run async, I'm just going to add in the following line of code here. So that registers the app state. It essentially goes into the dependency injection there. Okay, so the next step in shared main layout.razor, we need to add the following code. You can see it, but immediately after the this inherit statement. So what I'm going to do here is just add in here. I'm going to inject the app state into this, and also are going to implement the iDisposable. It's the only way we can get a handle on the application state here. Now, next we need to just adjust some of the code here. So I need to find a section here. So this builds up the category menu, okay, or the category menus, as you can see here. What we need to do is essentially encapsulate all this lot to show or hide it, depending if you've set that display category menu in header nav or not. Just below the row, add an if statement in here. And it's moaning because I need to close off that if statement a bit lower down. Just there. Okay, I'll save that. Then at the bottom of the main layout Razor page, I need to add another snippet of code here. This time we'll be adding in the state changed, or state has changed code from there. Okay, just ignoring this for a second. Okay, essentially we're just subscribing to these events here and listening out for them. This get menu area container class, when I did an analysis of when the category menu was displayed or not, it was simply the adding of this CSS class here on one of the divs. So just alter some of the code we just added, actually. Find it again. Where is it? Here we are. And there's a menu area. Where is it? Just search for it. I just need to add a class in above it. Okay, it's there. So yeah, you can see I need to basically trigger this class on and off. So what I do there is I just copy in a call to that method there. It's as simple as that. That'll trigger it on and off. Now, at the top of the category Razor page, just under the line that reads the inherits, I need to inject the app state. There we go. And at the bottom of this page, I need to add some more code in this code section here. Again, that's from a code snippet. So be adding in number 4, which is the code snippet to set the parameters async code. Okay, so what's happening here? So when this, the only way I could get, and this was again for lots of trial and error, to trigger this set display category menu and header nav properly was I can only do it on this set parameters async. There are there's essentially a list of a chain of events, if you like, a pipeline for Blazor, and the event happens just at the right time. I need to catch it before the whole thing is rendered, so I can set the category menu not to be displayed, i.e. setting it to false there. There's also just a few other places. So in all Razor files, I just need to do a find and replace on the there's a number of places where it says index1.html, and this is simply a hangover from copying the template. So I'll just do a find and replace on that there. Okay, yep, and also index.html needs to be replaced as well. Okay, so that means our navigation will now work properly when we're navigating between the category page and the home page. Next, in the shared main layout, there's a line that reads, in fact, it's right here in front of us here, look, ahref equals hash and then home. So just need to change that to be a /. That to work okay, that navigation to work okay. Next, we can go and delete from the index.html the reference to, there's a jQuery migrate reference towards the bottom here, which we can get rid of. We don't need that. We can go. And also we can delete that jQuery migrate from our folder here. Where is it? There it is. That can go. Now, I said a bit earlier that would be replacing all these JavaScript references and jQuery references to CDN. So in the code snippets here, let's go to number 5, which is JavaScript CDN references snippet. So let's grab that. And we're replacing pretty much everything in here. There we go. And then we can delete a lot of the files out of here. The only one we actually want to leave is this active here, but everything else can get deleted. So this just alternatively, I can do it from the File Explorer. Might be a bit quicker. Yep. So there. So let's leave active, and everything else can go. Okay, nice and easy. And at the top of the index razor page, we need to add it in at the, we're going to also have to inject the app state into here because we want to turn on that category menu in index.razor rather than just letting it appear by default, so we can control it properly. And then we need to just grab another snippet. So we need to go to item 6. We're going to again set the parameters async on this bit as well here. Okay, and notice here that it's set to true rather than false. In the index.html page, I'm going to replace all the style sheet CSS references. So again, there's a lot of CSS references here which need to be replaced with CDN references. Going back into the snippets folder, so style sheet CDN references here. Replace a lot. I did notice actually when I was putting this tutorial together, these steps together, that for some reason it was completely missing this CSS themify icons CSS file, but there we go, in there now. And at this stage is a good point to see what it looks like. So let's do .NET run. Compile and build. Close all these files out for the moment. A browser window. Let's have a quick look. Okay, so it's looking good. Let's try 5 of that. I don't know why this has dropped down. It should be alongside here. So there's obviously something not quite right there, but I'm not too fussed about that at the moment. Let's go to one of the category pages and let's just double check to make sure that menu doesn't appear. And it shows what was hidden behind it, which is the breadcrumbs and the sibling categories. Okay. Also, as you scroll down the page, the header is no longer fixed to the top of the browser window. So we'll be fixing that at a later stage in the presentation if we get around to it. But I have got a fix for it. And in fact, in the repo, if we don't get around to fixing it, it is fixed in the repo. Essentially, we need to use the JS interop. Okay, so that's the category page, index page, and the category menu sorted out, at least from a basic perspective. So now we need to add a product page in. So let's go to new file, product.razor. Okay, so the category menu shouldn't be displayed on this page. So go ahead and copy the code from initial code for product. So it's again another code snippet I've got here. So just go in here and grab that. So again, on this product page, the category menu shouldn't be appearing, and that's why I set it to false. Again, notice we've got a friendly product URL, which we're setting as this parameter here. The product page is based on the shop single HTML from the template. We're going to copy HTML again between the breadcrumbs and the end most popular area section. So let's find the breadcrumbs. Now breadcrumbs to the end most popular area. So let's start most popular. So the end most popular is there. Grab that, copy it in, and it has to go after the inject and before the code. There we go, that's our product page coming along. So in Product Razor, we need to replace a few lines of code here. So again, there's a reference, I think, to HTML, index1.html, so we just need to replace that with /. Save that. Again, we can have a quick look at what this looks like now, the product page. Let's just let it run. Again, to get to a product page, we'll have to, for the moment, just have to hard code it. So let's go to product, and then anything will do, test. And here's our product page. Okay, again, it's very non-functional, but the most important thing is that category menu is not obscuring the breadcrumb or the product slider. Notice also that this product slider or product image slider is not working correctly. Again, if there's time, we'll get around to fixing that. Again, we need to use the JS interop feature, and it's also fixed in the GitHub repo as well. Okay, so we only need to populate these dynamically. So what I'm going to do now is just set up all the other remaining missing projects. So this is where we implement our API and data layer essentially. So off the command line here, we'll just do .NET new. The data project will be a class library. Again, in the .NET 5 framework, that's a -F there below my cursor. And it's going to go into a folder called and project called blazor-commerce.data. It goes, and you can see it's created it here. Next, we need to do a shared folder. This is where all our shared classes and DTOs are going to be put in, which are going to be shared both between the sort of the back end through the API and also the front end Blazor application as well. So it's much the same again. So .NET new class lib -f net 5.0 -n Blazor commerce .shared. Now, to keep it really quick and easy and simple, I'll be using a SQLite database, which is really useful for sort of rapid prototyping of stuff, which is why I used it. I guess when I come around to doing presentations on parts 2 and parts 3, we'll be looking to replace that with perhaps a MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, or SQL Server database. So we're going to go into the data folder. I'm going to add some NuGet packages here. Change directory into the blazor-commerce.data, and then I'm going to do .NET add package and Microsoft .data.SQLite. Okay, and it goes. Perfect. And then we need to add in some extensions as well. So .NET add package Microsoft.extensions.options. Cool. Just going to CD out of that. Then I want to create the database setup console application. Again, through lots and lots of trial and error, I was constantly fiddling around with the database. In the end, I decided to just create a setup project, which I could just run at any time, which just deletes the database and overwrites it with a fresh new one. Now, importantly, this presentation is obviously not going to be demonstrating sort of data access code or APIs. It's solely going to be focused on the Blazor application. I'll be cheating a little bit in a little bit's time, but just to let you know that's coming up. So .NET new console. Again, the framework is .NET 5.0 -n, and then Blazor commerce.db setup. In that DB setup folder, we also need to install another NuGet package, so the SQLite NuGet package. So .NET add package Microsoft.data.SQLite. And it goes, and let's create the API project. Do .NET new web API -f net 5.0 -n Blazor commerce.api. Okay, there goes. All there. Okay, so the next few steps are create a new solution file and then add the project references in that we need and so on. And then for a big shortcut, and I'm going to copy in all the database setup code and run it, and I'll just quickly take you through that as well. Okay, but for now, we'll start with creating new solutions. So simply .NET new SLN. The name is the Blazor commerce.sln. And then the next step is to add the project references to the solution file, and then the internal or intra project references between the projects themselves. Okay, so I'm just going to go through these one by one. I'm just going to copy and paste from the snippet, which is number 9 in the snippets folder. So solution file project references snippet. The first one. And then the intra project references snippet to add references between the projects themselves. So essentially, the Blazor Commerce website project will just need to reference the shared. And then API and data will also need to reference shared. And the API needs to reference the data folder. So let's add data in now. That's that bit done. Next thing I'm going to do is generate the database from running the program file here. Now, there's a snippet again for this, which I'll talk you through. So in the snippets folder, I've got step 11 here, so program.cs snippet, and this is everything needed to set up the SQLite database, create the table structure that's necessary to support the features and functions that at least the 3 pages we're going to be doing, category, index, and products, require. I'm not going to bore you to tears with it all, but generally I've got something like nearly 200 categories. There's 3 levels of categories. So I've got a meta category, which is the top level, of which there's only 3. This is meant to be like a clothing and children's toys website. So I've got a women's meta category, men's meta category, and then a children and babies meta category. Underneath that, I've got a number of branch categories. And coming off those branch categories, I've got all these leaf categories here. I've also got a customer table. I'm also populating a lot of this with dummy data. So we'll get the database built and run. So I'm going to copy that into here. The beauty of this is that because this is separately and it's aside from the main application itself, you can run and reuse this anytime we want to. We can drop our database and create it on the fly. All the products are created randomly. The product options are all created randomly, and so on. So let's just run that now. So I just need to go into that folder. And what it does is it will copy, well, actually set up a SQLite database, not in the Blazor Commerce.db setup folder, but in the data folder ultimately. When we deploy this, if it's going to get deployed somewhere on the internet, then the last thing you want to do is essentially copy up or have your database stranded inside your DB setup folder. Let's just run this. It does take a minute or so to run through, assuming everything's been done okay. In the meantime, what I want to do is I want to show you the database schema. Oh, I didn't save it. Look, that's why it's come back with "Hello World" to me. Look, let's try that again. So database schema is here. Hopefully, it's big enough or clear enough for you to see. I'll just zoom in a touch. So this is what is going on behind the scenes in the code behind here. So starting at the basic level here, we've got customers, and we have addresses for customers and orders. So an order is for a customer, also has a billing address and a delivery address, points to the addresses table there. The order details is the breakdown of that order, which also goes to what I've called product option, product instances. So we've got a products table. Coming off of that, we've got this product options products table, which is just a link table between products and product options. Now, product option is, for example, a size of clothing or a shoe size or something of that nature, which is held in the product option types. So it's just open SQLite Manager here, so we can have a quick look at the DB to help visualize it. So there's all the tables there. If I have a look at the product option and product option types tables, product option types, here we go. So these are the main product option types. I'm sure there's many more, but these are the ones I could think of off the top of my head. And then product options, you've got the actual option within that product option type. Also, in the UK, we've got 3 levels of sales tax. We've got 0 rated tax, a 5% tax, which is typically on energy and energy products, and also our standard rate of tax. So I've got, and each option could have a different sales tax value depending on its size. So, for example, shoe size is a classic example here. So for small shoe sizes, okay, so these would be considered to be children's shoe sizes. Sales tax or VAT on children's clothing is 0 rated, and up to a size 3, I think it is, a UK size 2, 3 or 4, I can't remember which one it is. That's when it goes to standard rate. So I've allowed for different sales tax, different VAT rates essentially, with the different product options. An instance here is time the cost or the price of a product is. So obviously the amount, the cost of a product can go up and down over time. So I've built this in a way that handles that by having like an effective from and to date for each price, for each product option, product link there. Also, there's obviously there's a notion, it's an e-commerce website, got a notion of a shopping cart and cart items, and the cart items themselves obviously linked to here. Both order details and cart items have a quantity associated in them as well. Off of the products, you've got different product features. So I cast your mind back to when I showed you the template itself, the website template. There was a product features section, so just a bulleted list basically. A product is supplied by a manufacturer, so I've got a supply manufacturer here. And a product is also associated to a leaf category. Leaf category is associated to a branch category. At the very top level, a branch category is associated to a meta category. I'll leave the database open on on my other screen, so we can reference it if we need to again later. So that's a database built, and if we open up the data folder, we can see it's there, blazorcommerce.db. Okay, so I decided that the data layer should implement the repository pattern, but in the end, it wasn't the right decision, mainly because the resulting code ended up failing the I of the solid principles, so that's the interface segregation. All my interfaces that I had were implementing methods that were then throwing not implemented exception. But unfortunately, time was against me in this instance. I didn't want to rewrite the implementation steps at this stage. When I come around to doing part 2, well, I'll rejig the data layer entirely, so it follows the solid principles properly. Also, whilst I was rehearsing this presentation, it became apparent that I wouldn't have time to go through every single step of getting a database and API and SQLite set up. So the focus should be on Blazor properly. So for now, I'm just going to delete these class 1 files here. And I'm essentially going to replace the whole lot with, essentially, here's what I made earlier. So get rid of data, get rid of shared. I'm also going to delete the weather forecast CS, don't need any of that. And the controller, there's a weather forecast controller as well. Don't need any of that either. And then I want to grab out of the snippets, code snippets, there's API, data, and shared files and folders here. And this is basically one that I've made earlier, okay? It supports the features and functionality of those 3 pages that we're looking to put together. So I'm just going to overwrite contents of these. So I'm just going to copy that, paste that in. Yes, I want to replace the files. Same with the data. Now, this data folder doesn't contain the DB. I don't want to overwrite the DB after we've just created it. Copy over that. I'll say it's a bit of a cheat, but it allows us to focus on the Blazor side of things properly. Okay, so that's that done. So you can see I've got controllers for various elements here that are pulling information out of the database and then converting it to these data transformation objects that are just data stores, basically. Okay, we'll go through this as we need to, bit by bit. I'll just close these up. Okay, so for now we can just concentrate on the Blazor project. What we do need to do, though, of course, is make sure the API runs correctly, that it does run up. At this point, I'm going to actually open up a second terminal window and navigate to the API project. There we go. .NET run. We're just going to hit one of those endpoints. Essentially going to try and hit the category controller, and specifically the featured categories. Hopefully this will return us a list of categories. This is also running under HTTPS as well on port 5005. And as these are mainly all GET requests, I can just do it in the browser. Or something like Postman. Category, I think. Featured categories. It works, okay. But this is just returning those categories that are going to be displayed on the home page, on the main page. Okay. One thing to bear in mind is in the startup CS, again, this was quite a lot of pain, about an hour's worth of pain. I needed to enable cores. which is cross-origin requests. So I needed to set up cause properly, so I did it there, I think here as well. So this just allows any header from any origin, and that's what was the tripping point for me. Okay. So what we can do now is we're going to start making these categories on the home page dynamic now properly. So let's open up Index Razor. Essentially going to replace the hero image replace this bit here to make it dynamic based on whichever is the hero category in the database at the moment. And this will be a leaf category, which there's lots. So we just need to browse through this very quickly. What we're looking for is where hero is set to 1, which is a true. That one there. So men's shirts will be the hero category, replacing the men's shirts that's there. Okay, so to do this, we need to update the HTTP client registration in program. So I just need to replace it with the proper address for the API. Of course, this could come out of a configuration file, but for now I'm just going to hard code it to be localhost 5005. And then back in the index page, we need to register that HTTP client in the DI. So underneath the app state, copy that in. There you go. It's in there, ready. Now, in the code section of the index page, I'm going to add a new private member, which will be used to populate the hero category. So again, here's one. Copy that in. So it's coming out of the shared library. Category DTO is the class. I'm also going to call it underscore hero category. Obviously, we now need to populate that. So again, in the code section of the index page, we want to create a new method on initialized async, which is the right point in the pipeline to do this. I'm going to grab that from the snippet, the code snippets folder, number 12. Yes, here we are, Index Razor on initialized async snippet. Again, all these code snippets are all part of the repo as well, so you can just grab them as you need to. As is these instructions that I'm following as well. These are all in the repo as well, so you can do this at your leisure as well. So that should populate it. Now we need to actually set this here. We need to populate this area here properly, but we can't do that if hero category is null. So we just need to do a little check to make sure that hero category is not null first, which needs to go just above there. And obviously a closing curly brace, the end of the slider area. That's it there. It's a little bit confusing. Let's just nudge that in. Okay. Then we need to add a new method in the code section of the index page to conduct string replacements, so I didn't have to store HTML markup in the database. I've put in replacements for these break tags and the span tag, essentially replacing break tags with the a double underscore, and the span tags with an underscore and minus symbol. To do that, we need to have a function that replaces that on the fly. So again, in the code snippets, go to number 13. So there's do placeholder replacements. Just replace what I just said there. Copy that into the code section. Just plonk it in here. And then we need to do those replacements I was talking about here, and replace it with the dynamic category. So again, I've got a code snippet to copy and paste into here. Let's grab that. in Razor syntax to display or render strings that contain HTML markup is to encapsulate the whole thing in this markup string. It's a static method that's built in. That's that done. So let's see this working. And now this is the time when we get the website to communicate with the API. So let's do a .NET run in the API, then switch to the other terminal window and do .NET run from here. Oh no, it's a DB setup. Let's not do that there. Let's do that in the Blazor Commerce website. It's running. Browser window. And hopefully there's no errors. That's it. So this is all now being loaded dynamically from the database directly now. Let's stop that from running. Control C out of here. Now I need to populate a small banner section here that needs replacing. These are categories in their own right. There's 3 of those. Then underneath the trending item section, there is another area that needs replacing. There's 2 categories in here that's going to end up being replaced as well. So let's start with the small banner ones. So we need to have something that will hold the small banner categories. So let's create a new member there called small banner categories. Now we're already getting all the featured categories already and storing them in this category. So all we need to do is pull out the small banner categories from this existing list. And this is in where the category type is 2. Save that. What doesn't it like about this? Oh, that needs to be where, doesn't it? Then, to get this displayed, under the Start Small Banner, here, we need to replace a few lines of the HTML code snippet 15. Let's grab that. See what we're replacing here. Again, we've got to check if it's null. We don't want to render it and then it to fall over, because small banner categories and also need to do a null check and make sure there are some in there. And then we're going to loop through, start a loop through each of the small banner categories. I believe I'm replacing the code there. Just nudge that in. Okay. You can clearly see we need to put a couple of closing curly braces in there for each. Okay. Then I believe we can delete the other 2 single banners. Go, we don't need these. Markup can go. And then we need to replace this area here with the categories pulled from the database, which is in code snippet 16. So replacing the image and the text. Again, doing similar placements there. So that's that. Next, we'll need to sort out this medium banner area here as well. So, just like before, we need to have a member that we're going to store this list in. And then we can apply pretty much the same thing here as well. So let's grab those out, and no surprise, it's category type of 3 for that. And then we need to replace, where's it gone, that medium banner here. Again, detect if the medium banner member is null or has any items. I'll just grab a code snippet for that. So replacing row and column 6. Okay, so that bit there. Okay, let's nudge that in. See that we just need to put a closing put curly braces there, and then delete this second medium banner. And then we just need to replace the content. So again, we've got another code snippet for that. So number 18, code snippet. Grab that. And the image and the content. Let's see what it looks like. I've left the API running. There's no need to make any changes there. So I'm just going to leave it running in the background now. From now on, just run this up. See these categories, these banners. Okay, and here we are with my lorem ipsum. And actually, I've also put in the links. Since we go click on these links, it does actually take us to the category page as well. Okay, so I haven't done anything with the trending items yet. And here's the two medium banners as well. So that's cool. That's that bit done. Now, there's not much going on the category page really. So let's now work on updating the category page to be a bit more dynamic. So we need to actually load up a category. We haven't even got a category yet, not really. So to do that, we need to use the DI to inject the HTTP client. So we can make HTTP client calls out. Goes at the top. And we need to have somewhere to store the category that we're retrieving from the database. So again, another member variable there. And then into code snippet 19, where we're going to be adding the on-parameters set async method, a bit like what we're doing on the index page as well. That's fine. Now that category information has been retrieved, we need to update the breadcrumb in here. Okay, so this becomes a bit more dynamic rather than saying shop grid, which is the template we copied it from. So to do that, we just need to replace these bits with, again, from another code snippet. So code snippet 20. So we're replacing the unordered list. There we go. And then we need to replace this sibling categories. We need to make it dynamic. So to do that, we are going to need a member variable to be able to populate that list. There we go. And then again, code snippet 21. And we can do this on the onInitialized async event. Okay, so all we're doing here is just making a call out to the API, like we have done in the other place as well, converting the response to the type we need, in this instance, IEnumerable of category min DTO, returned as JSON, converting it into what we need it to be. Then we need to essentially replace the list here. So to do that, let's do that with another code snippet. Let's go to code snippet 22. Here, and you'll see that we're actually using a built-in component here in Blazor, in fact Razor actually, called a nav link. What this essentially is doing, it just renders out as a standard anchor tag, but I'm using this match and active class. So if the current category is matched or found in this list as it's being rendered out, it will just append this current category class onto the menu item. Okay, that's all it's doing. We'll make use here of CSS isolation, which was first introduced, or newly introduced in .NET 5 for Blazor. So Blazor components, or Razor components, can have their own CSS, and it remains isolated from all other CSS files. It's really quite clever how it does it, and we're gonna do that here. So we're going to implement this new feature. So what we need to do is we are going to need to update the. In fact, we have to create a category razor.css file. Okay, and this, with a little bit of adjustment, allows for this CSS isolation to occur. So let's go into code snippet 23. I'll copy that into here. Save that. Now this doesn't. We're not quite done yet. There's still a few little tweaks we need to make first. So over into the, all this does is it just puts a couple of dashes alongside the selected category and makes it purple. That's all it does. You need to go into the index HTML page, and we need to state the CSS file for the isolation. Now we do that by stating the assembly.styles.css. It's all read through and compiled and put into this class here. And I think that's that bit done for that little bit. So let's now run this up so we can see what's actually going on, and we'll have a look through the developer toolbar as well and the inspector. And this was in the category, wasn't it? So let's go into the main shirts category for now. Notice we've got the breadcrumb working properly now, and these are sibling categories. Isn't doing what I thought it was going to be doing. I was hoping it would. Have I not saved the file? I've not saved the category razor file again. Okay, sorry about that. So quit out and rerun it. I have a habit of doing that. Okay, it's running. So let's just refresh this page. There we go. You can see that the selected item is quite clearly visible. And also as I click around, okay, it's almost instant loading up as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what's going on here, so you can see how this CSS isolation works. If I just hover over an element, you can see here that this sort of attribute is added dynamically by the runtime. Okay, by the Blazor runtime. That's important to know. In fact, everything within this control has now got this this custom attribute applied to it. That's worthy of note. Also, the current class category is set. So if I go into hoodies, you can see here the current class or current category is being applied, which is what this navlink match all is doing in the active class there. Go back here. Okay, so we can navigate around the various categories, and the mini category list on the left hand side will be highlighted automatically. Inspect the HTML, you'll see the current category class is still being set. The value of navlink match.all on the property, on the match property essentially sets the class of the anchor tag to be active. If the URL in the browser matches the value in the href attribute, the active class name can be overridden by setting the value of the active class. Okay, so what we do next, and there's a few minutes to go. We're almost at the end of these steps, actually. It's timed reasonably well. Obviously, there's a lot more to go yet in this in these steps here. I've actually got something like 300 steps in total, and we're only at step 104. And only that gets us as far as populating the category index and product pages. So this is going to go into a part 2. Hopefully, in the part 2, we'll be able to start using some of the JS interop stuff as well to create cookies, update the shopping cart, and so on. Next, we want to implement the best-selling section in the categories menu on the home page. So let's start by extracting the template HTML and creating a new Razor component. So in VS Code, we're going to add a new file called main categories menu in the shared folder. Main categories menu.razor. So that main categories menu that we're either showing or hiding, we're going to be making this a component in its own right. That's what we're doing here. Copy or cut and paste the HTML from main layout. So we need to find the if. I'm going to cut the contents of this out and replace it with a Blazor component reference. So let's just cut this out, paste it into here, and then I'll save that. And then back on the main layout, we're going to create this new Blazor categories component reference there. Okay. So we'll just quickly run this up. So we shouldn't see any difference at all. But that's how you have a component, a sub-component reference within a component, if that makes sense. Category menu is still displaying. So we go to a category page and it's not, so it's working entirely as expected. What I will do, because I know we've run out of time, and hopefully people have got a few questions they might want to pose. What I will do is I'm going to run the finished article so people can just see what that looks like. So I'm just going to close all for now. I'm going to close this folder. Oh, I'm going to stop these from running. Close the folder out. In fact, I'll opening up the this folder here. I think for this to work, I just need to change the names of a few of the database. Where's the database path is going to be not there, is it? It's going to be in app settings JSON. So this is Blazor Commerce Part 1. Blazor Commerce Part 1. Hopefully, fingers crossed that'll work. Let me open up terminal windows again. And let's go into CD Commerce. And then open up another terminal window. Hopefully people can bear with me just a second whilst I do this. There's a method to the madness. Let's do .NET run. Hopefully this will work. May not. I've not practiced this bit yet. So this is the full implementation with the calls out to using the JavaScript interop to here. You can see to use the JS interop, I'll need to add a few more references in for DI. For JavaScript to call a .NET Blazor method, you need to decorate it with these attributes here. And then your JavaScript can call the .NET code. I'm doing this to trigger an update on the shopping cart. Also, I need to set a cookie. You can't set a cookie directly from Blazor. You have to use the JS interop to do that. So I'm calling out to JavaScript at this point. I'm calling the set layout features and get cart cookie methods, and they're all within the index HTML. So if I scroll down to here, I had to add in these bits at the bottom here, which we would have got around to eventually. that just sets that, pins the header section to the top of the browser. It also sets the product image slider here. And this is where I'm getting and setting the cookies for the shopping cart as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this will work. I can just quickly demonstrate the finished piece, which we might certainly get onto in part 2 of this presentation at a later date. Let's see if this works. It might not, but it might do. Okay, it's almost a copy, so it's almost running. It's running on the same ports as well, so it's running on localhost 5001 and 5005 for the API. Oops, localhost 5001. Fingers crossed this works and doesn't fall over in a heap, and I think it's working. So here's all our leaf categories. All these products here are dynamic as well. I can switch in and out, and this all works nicely. You can notice the product images, the products are all changing. We can click on one of these, go to a product itself. I've already got a shopping basket, which I've been playing with. I've got these available options. The only thing I haven't been able to do is highlight the selected option when you click on it, but this quantity goes up and down. This is a Blazor component in its own right that's doing this. And if I add to cart, that should update the shopping cart tally there, and it does do. And if I hover over it, it should also show me the 3 items I've just added in. There are the bookcoos. Okay, so it would have worked eventually if we had had enough time to do it. But yes, as I said, part 2 to come later in the year. Just quit out of this. I'll stop my screen share now. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I think this is interesting. I think this is interesting. Although, obviously, having written C# from the server from server side, it's a bit. Yeah, it's something that I'll need to get used to a bit with respect to writing actual C# code in your HTML. Or Razor files in this case, but the good thing is, from a front-end perspective, you can manage everything entirely within those files, so you're not worrying about managing controllers and other classes. All you have is your views and your functions to handle the rendering of dynamic data in the view. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
That's right, and particularly so if I share my screen again just quickly, if that's okay with everybody, I can show you where that's being done as an example. So screen 2. Hopefully this will work. So back in VS Code, where that's being done, for example, is where it's updating the shopping cart. Those add and subtract quantity in the basket is being done here. It's a standard HTML button, but we're handling the on-click event in .NET, in Blazor itself. Yeah. It's just saying I want to decrement the quantity and increment the quantity, and then these functions have been implemented below. Here we go. So it's just simply adding or subtracting. Obviously, you can't have have a quantity of stock more a quantity of items more than is in stock. So that's the limit there. And obviously, you can't have a 0 or minus quantity. And this is being bound as a parameter here. And that product quantity is also, if I just search for this just quickly, is being stored in this input field, which I've just set to read only, but that's where it's being, that's an example of data binding as well.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I guess I'll need to look at this more.
Thanks for the question, Albert. Has anybody got any other questions? Take that as a no. Well, thank you for everybody taking part and joining us this evening. I'll just remind you that the next .NET Meetup date is the 22nd of June. The subject is going to be clean architecture in mobile apps from a friend of mine, Phil Johnson. So thank you everybody for taking part, and I'll catch you all later.